and welcome to episode number 125 of Killer POV. I'm one of your hosts, Rob G. from Blumhouse.com. With me is Mr. Elric Kane. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good.
Drinking Heinekens.
I'm drinking a Heineken. Thank you,
Yet
Adam
again,
Lima.
sponsored by our sponsor, Adam Lima.
Sure, brought to you by Adam Lima. Just
fans,
a regular Joe.
Fans were like, how can we, listeners were like, how can we sponsor the show so that you don't read ads anymore? This is how. You just buy us beer.
Buy us beer. That's a reason to show
up. Some Blu-rays would be nice. That's why I was using my spending money on Criterion. I did pick up The Brood and Mulholland Drive in the last 50% off sale. I haven't watched them yet, but...
all right, we'll get to that.
I'm not in a rush, you know what I mean? It's like I know the film so well, but it is exciting.
Also with us, the editor-in-chief at Blumhouse.com, Rebekah McKendry.
I just ate so much candy while waiting for you guys to get here. There's a bowl of leftover Halloween candy up there. I just ate 6 packs of Whoppers in a row.
Goodbye.
It was great.
I need candy.
Well, I brought in some gummies, which was the last pack, and Rob thought they looked gross. So I highly recommend trying the blue raspberry frozen gummies.
Freaking like a giant sperm.
Yeah, I kind of was
really
intrigued by the frozen giant sperm.
Well, good. I would love if Elric would eat it then.
Elric, eat that.
I will eat it in one big throaty bite.
Holy smokes. All righty, so much to discuss before our guest comes on. Fabulous guest.
Yeah, we got a good one tonight.
And
that's
the
all I'm
level
talking
of directors that she's worked with.
That's my number one interest,
Holy smokes.
It's not often you get a script supervisor on a show. It is going to be exciting.
Not to mention, it's just a lady. We never get ladies on.
We try. They say no.
Yeah.
I think
you guys creep them out.
Yeah, they think me and Elric are creepy. That's why. No, but anyway.
Haven't they heard the Felissa Rose episode? That's not creepy.
That's pretty. You're pretty
that's
creepy
just
in that one.
That's just or my entity love.
Oh God,
you know what you're in for.
Okay, well, I'll kick us off then. Arrow, U.S. Arrow, the cheeky U.S. Arrow, put out Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive on Blu-ray. I had Steven Scarlatt over, the producer of Jodorowsky's Dune, who was on our shark exploitation episode. And with somebody with that kind of taste in movies, we had to pick something really weird and off kilter, and I felt like Eaten Alive was it. Now, here's the funny thing. I have never seen this movie, apparently. I thought I did... But when we started watching it, it was far beyond my wildest dreams. What it was like. It's just, have you guys seen it?
I've seen it on VHS and remember it feeling like a play. Like it felt like it was on a stage in a weird way.
Yeah, I tried to watch it when I was younger and I was really bored by it. And I don't recall much.
The restoration is ridiculous. Like there's absolutely zero reason this movie should look as great as it does, but it looks spectacular. Second, it's like it feels more like the movie that Tobe made before Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
It feels stylistically like Chainsaw Massacre in that there's all these crazy people and they're all like yelling a lot. And there's like kind of this crazy like guy that runs a motel and he's got a crocodile out in the back. And he has like a penchant for like losing his temper and murdering people and then he just throws them in there or whatever.
And what does Buck like to do?
Buck likes to, he's raring to...
Coitus.
Huh? Yeah, he likes, Buck is Robert Englund, a very young Robert Englund, who likes to make it with the prostitutes.
He likes to fuck them.
Yes, that's
right. Because it rhymes.
No, but not when I say them, so I kind of killed the rhyme off.
Yeah, I know.
I'm bucking him. Yeah, anyway.
He's pretty great in it too, but it's just like even the sound design like makes you uneasy because it's just like this loud droning noise like the whole time. It's just, it feels like an unrefined version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which doesn't mean it's good. It just means it is what it is. And it definitely feels like what he would have made before that movie, not after it.
I really want to see it again. It's one of those ones on VHS. Kind of like Bekah. I remember it being a little dull. I think it was the shooting style. It really did feel like it was like a weird theatrical stage. There's something about the depth in it. But I also remember them making some really nice taboo, really kind of messed up things in it that made it a lot of fun.
There's quite a lot of
It felt kind of
those.
like a black comedy. Which makes sense with his movies.
Yeah. And I mean, this one's
evolved into the Mangler.
Yeah. I mean, other than Robert Englund, William Finney's in it. He's got a bit part in it. Marilyn Burns returns.
That's right.
And he yet again, she spends the second half of the movie tied to a bed, like screaming her lungs out. I'm like, man, no wonder she didn't go beyond these Tobe movies.
Cooper just like to torture her. That was it.
So.
It was
that
just
was his
into
thing.
Marilyn screaming.
But yeah, no, it's fascinating. And I mean, I guess the thing that you wouldn't have noticed on VHS, which now is a lot more prominent in this, is like So the first, I don't know if he did this on purpose or what, but like the first third of the film stylistically looks like an Argento movie. It's got like these beautiful pinks and purples, like the way it's lit, like right outside the hotel and stuff like that.
Wow.
But then it's funny because then for the second half, he completely just drops that, and it's just like kind of almost Hammer-esque in terms of like just fog and like light and dark and stuff. So I don't know, maybe Toby,
maybe start a movie in between. It's just like, hey, it's a spirit.
Let's do this.
Yeah. So Eaten Alive is quite interesting. And again,
is that out yet?
Yeah, Arrow put it out on Blu-ray.
I'll be curious to see it.
US. So there's that one, and really quickly, I wanted to follow up because last time I couldn't articulate my feelings on Blood and Lace from 1971, not Blood and Black Lace.
Yeah,
this is called Blood and Lace. Scream Factory's putting it out on Tuesday, and the reason I rewatched it is because David Scow wanted to see it. Him and his wife Carrie. She has this movie. I should bring her on the show actually, or just get a snippet of her describing this, because she's got a movie that she describes to everybody that she vaguely remembers from when she was a kid. Only she thinks she's mixing up maybe two movies. Nobody's been able to get it. She even tried Quentin Tarantino, who was stumped.
But has she done Kinder Trauma? Because they answer a lot of those questions.
I don't know, but she read the synopsis for this one, Blood and Lace, and was like, I think this might be it. So I very excitingly brought it over. It was not, but we were thoroughly entertained by this movie. As I told you, it starts out with a
American or British?
I think it's American.
Oh.
Yeah.
It starts out with a couple getting murdered, like a POV shot of it, and then the daughter of the girl, who's like a prostitute, ends up getting set to like this kind of orphanage. But the people that run the orphanage are equally as crazy, and they only have kids there to like get the money for harboring them. And they're kind of like some of the kids that try to run away, they like kill and then they put them in the freezer. And then, like when the guy, yes, and when the guy comes, this is the least crazy part of the movie. Like the movie's fucking bonkers. And then, like when the guy from the child services comes to count them, they take them out of the freezer and put them in the infirmary, like they unthaw them out and do that. And then there's the potential murderer of the girl's parents at the beginning. So there's like this really burnt up dude that's hiding out in the basement that occasionally pops up and it's just freaky looking. There's just so much going on in this movie. But what I took away this time, and I didn't realize, is this is 1971. The opening scene of the movie is your POV going into the kitchen, grabbing a weapon, going into a bedroom.
Oh, shit.
And murdering a couple before Halloween, before Black Christmas even. Yeah. So I was like, wow, this is... So it even says it on the box set. It's like it's the pre-slasher slasher. Like it doesn't follow the slasher tropes.
Right.
But it is the first movie to have a scene like that.
That's cool.
And it's been kind of long lost for quite a while. I don't think it ever came out.
Did the filmmaker make another one?
No. It was like his one and only movie. And it also has by far the most fucked up, twisted, hilarious ending. Like it was the sort of thing where like if you're holding anything, you drop it and you're like... Is that really how it's going to... Wow.
Well, I remember when Pieces ended that I felt that. First time I saw Pieces, I was like, oh my God.
It is up there with the Pieces ending. That's what I got to say.
I've got to see this movie.
So I'm going to lend that one to you because...
I did well. I returned all my videos today.
You did. What did you see?
Well, with you...
Yes.
One of the most important viewings of the year.
Yeah.
The only Jason movie I wanted to see on Friday 13th was Jason Goes to Hell.
We're the only two.
Much maligned on everyone's list in the rankings. When we went on Twitter on Friday, all the rankings had it pretty much in the last two places. Well, they're wrong in the director's cut. I definitely think they're wrong. So this is what we should talk about, because you basically had... I wanted to watch it on Blu-ray because I was excited to see it look great, but then you told me the Blu-ray wasn't the director's cut. It was just the theatrical, which I would have seen in the theaters. And we weren't really sure how much of it... And we looked at the quality, and it was a big difference in terms of the Blu-ray, but we watched it on DVD anyway, and the... what is it, like 4 scenes maybe?
Yeah, it's a good 3-4 minutes worth of footage.
3 or 4 key scenes, but at the level of brutality and like just incredible effects and kind of the tone that what it creates in the movie was so extremely different that it's... The only other one that I can liken to is what I saw on those outtakes of Leatherface.
Oh yeah, Leatherface.
Those effects just look incable in Leatherface, and they keep going, and it really makes you excited.
Same with My Bloody Valentine, the original, when they reinstalled the gore scenes, because now it elevates. Like, I'm gonna do an article on this next week about it's context. Like, yeah, it's only a couple seconds here and there, but like, I think it was John Carl Buechler, the director of Friday 7, that said it's like setting up a joke and then you don't get to deliver the punchline. Like not getting that gory bit. Taking those gory bits out definitely changes the context of all these films. Now,
they're pretty amazing. The one in the tent, the girl literally gets like ripped in half. Like cut in half in a way that's just really dark. And later on, there's a death that's so brutal that it changes. I mean, that's what they don't understand about horror is like the brutality of certain moments can make you empathize more with the lead characters running away, or it can make you feel something that if you take it out, it's not an arbitrary cut anymore. Yeah. It's actually a radical rewrite. And so, I think they don't understand that sometimes.
So that's a big part of Jason Goes to Hell is getting to see the unrated cut, which... If, I did a little research after we watched it, I don't think even this DVD that I have here is available anymore. Oh. Really? Like, I looked up on Amazon, and I think you could only get the regular cut of it. So,
interesting.
So even this unrated is kind of hard to get. But if you have, like, a local, used store somewhere near you, I would recommend... Because this cut, it's a fun movie. It's a really fun movie. I had a lot of fun
watching. I mean, I've always loved the opening. I didn't remember how much fun the rest of it was.
Right.
And like you were saying while we're watching it, you kind of have to like almost divorce it from the rest. Like just imagine it's just a horror movie you're put on.
Yeah.
And it's really it's definitely more like a sequel to The Hidden. Yeah, I mean, it feels more in that vein.
Wow. It's the Hidden, even with but the worms instead of it's a serial killer.
Yeah, but
it just happens to be.
But it's fun. Now, if I say the name Jason Voorhees, what do you think of?
Camp Crystal Lake, Friday 13th.
The hockey mask.
Quiz,
Rob, Elric.
What? When I say the name Jason Voorhees, what do you think of?
I think of a girl. Wait, what is it?
I think of a little girl
in a pink
dress trying to put a hot dog
through a donut.
Okay, somebody needs to explain what the subtext and thematic meaning of that quote by the bounty hunter in that movie, because that's got to be the craziest line maybe in recent movies.
Yes, no, I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff and some of the Crystal Lake Memory stuff with the director, who by the way was only 23 years old when he made Jason Goes to Hell, which is unbelievable. But
talk about a big pressure movie.
It was just him and the writer were trying to come up with whatever would make them laugh harder.
Oh my god,
they were always like challenging
and
themselves.
That's where the hot dog and the donut
It's the guy from 21 Jump Street.
Amazing, yes, saying that. Who even he has said that he doesn't understand the movie or even what that line means, but
he's great. And the best thing about it was like the next day I got to watch him in The Leftovers, where he's almost equally hardened and badass.
I've heard that show is like amazing.
It's very interesting. You have to have a little patience for that one. That one's like, it's not giving away any secrets, but it's interesting. Yeah,
right.
I've been enjoying it.
But we'll be starting on that soon.
But Jason Goes to Hell is really fun, and I mean, I don't. Yeah, in terms of ranking, I don't know. It doesn't hit the things you might want from a Jason movie. Maybe that's the issue, but it's so much more entertaining to me than a bunch. Well, definitely tons more than 8.
Yeah, I always say context. I mean, that's the thing nowadays. When it comes to either remakes or sequels or whatever it is, it's so much better after a long period of time revisiting them just on their own. Meaning, if you're going to watch all the Friday 13th movies as a marathon, by the time you get to that one, you're going to be disappointed because you're already in that frame of mind. It's like, oh, this isn't a Friday 13th. But like, we did the smart thing. We didn't watch any of the other Fridays. We just watched this one as a solo horror movie. And I remember like listing out all the plot points to you, like, all right, I'm not listening to this horror movie. I was like, all right, so there's a serial killer and it's set up like a slash trip. They blow him away, but he's a demon and he bounces from body to body like The Hidden. And then like when he bounces out of the body, like the bodies melt and stuff. And and there's this crazy Creighton Duke guy, whatever. And there's adults like making wise decisions. Like it's like that sounds like an alright horror movie, right?
Yeah, hard to be down on that. Like that was a really good time.
Yeah,
and like just surprisingly good performances and fun performances, kind of over the top.
Yeah.
Kind of John Watersy moments. I don't know. I had a lot of fun watching that one. I chased that with the one you watched last week, which I'd never seen, the Peter Straub based on the story Ghost Story. And I was really surprised to find that had like a 4.6 IMDb rating. It was really particularly low, 4.6 on like Rotten Tomatoes.
Half.
It's really low, and it really feels like a classic kind of horror.
Like it?
Yeah, I really liked it.
It's really good.
I mean,
that's what kept me from watching it when I was researching it. Is I saw these low rankings of it.
Yeah, I was trying to figure it out because it's very classical for the most part. It has a little bit of tonal inequality only because it cuts to so many different time periods in a sense, and it has like goes between crazy dream horror to like very modern, almost Brian De Palma looking New York or something, and then it goes back to like some very kind of romanticized British period piece kind of thing. But it's really fun. The actors are great, and Dick Smith's like horror effects of the actual kind of the woman as a ghost are really creepy and almost Fulci-like. I don't know. I thought it was a really cool movie. And I agree with you. Alice Krige gives a tremendous performance. And so it was really cool seeing it for the first time. It definitely felt almost like a...
hottest she's ever been.
She was the hottest. Yeah. It felt something... It almost felt like one of the few movies I've seen recently that's a really good movie, but also could work really well as a remake in a modern context. I could see somebody telling that story maybe in a Stephen King-y kind of New England kind of town, a little bit more modern. But either way, it's on its own definitely a must-watch for horror fans, I think, who haven't seen it like I hadn't. And it had a particularly good Alice Krige interview on the bonus disc because she went like really in depth. Like it was like, I don't know, 30 minutes about how her career started and kind of what was nice. I don't want to sound like a dick, so I didn't tweet this, but what I wanted to say was something like, I feel like all actors and actresses who specifically work in genre, like mostly in the genre, could benefit a lot with just watching this interview with her. The kind of class and the formal training, the way she approaches the genre completely seriously with not saying other people don't, but it's almost like I really feel like this is kind of an inspiring interview to see that if you treat it like that, you really do elevate whatever you're working with.
Scream queens?
Yeah, well, I just feel like there's that thing. There's so many people who just like, I own the acting genre. But the way she approached it, she was playing these 3 different roles in a sense. Yeah. And I don't know, I thought the interview was really great. It was a really great movie. And the last thing I did, which was, I've been professing my somewhat like of Knock Knock, which I think got misinterpreted as
it's
I really liked
film of the year.
Yeah, it won't be in any top 10 list, but I did like it more than a lot of his recent stuff. But so I was posting a bit about that, but then timing wise, beautifully, he came on this podcast, the one I've been liking a lot, Bret Easton Ellis, the Beat podcast. Eli Roth did, and it was interesting because the build-up was quite kind of surprising because Bret Easton Ellis kept talking about how he thinks Eli Roth made 2 of the best movies of like the last few years. Like he thinks Green Inferno is like some masterpiece, and he thinks Knock Knock is literally in the top 2 of the year. Like he thinks, and I agree with him. I think it does have some interesting themes that are not just kind of horror, but about like millennials and stuff. But then the rest of the episode, I got to say, I feel like in my soul, I disagree. I've never disagreed with people more listening to a show in my life. Like everything
with both of them.
There's stuff, with both of them, because Bret's very like, these movies like Babadook, It Follows, and that's not horror. They're just, they're just dressing some up, and it's all these millennials, little snowflake people who can't like take life. And I'm just listening.
Snowflake people?
Yeah, they call them like snowflake. And I'm just listening to these 2 guys kind of talk about no one's hard anymore, no one's struggled, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, it's you have to kind of just roll with the next generation. That's a new world. And Eli's talking about how everyone's outraged, but a lot of what Eli Roth says in this interview is kind of dressed up like, critics didn't like my movie, so fuck critics. I mean, it's pretty rough, especially one Alison Wilmore. He goes out of his way to kind of say, who gives a shit about people who write about movies? You're all idiots. You didn't get a degree in it anymore. And you just listen to it, and I don't do that for a living, and so I don't have anything at stake, but I'm listening to it going, no, I think they're just people didn't like your movie, and maybe that's that. And it's not because your movie's so elevated that no one got it or something like that. But anyway, it wasn't just that. There was just something about it. I think it's a good talking point, and I think it's a good podcast. I didn't love it. Like I wasn't left inspired like I had been by a lot of the other interviews. It kind of left me with similar feelings I already had about some of Roth's work, but it was interesting, and it was definitely interesting to hear their take on modern movies. I think Bret Easton Ellis has been saying he thought it was the worst worst couple years in movies in general, and so it's kind of, he's been getting a lot of flack for that from people, and so it was interesting to listen to. I didn't agree with any of it pretty much, right. But except for the part that Keanu there's a scene, that's all I'm going to say. There's a scene where he kind of tries to avoid like being with these girls. They come into your house and he's the dad and stuff, and he's just trying his hardest to be polite but not kind of give in, and he just throughout a long conversation he just keeps changing seats. They come and sit next to him, he changes seats. They come and his acting in that, honestly, I might give it like, it might be one of my favorite genre performances of the year.
Number 1 film of the year.
It won't be my number 1. Sorry, Eli.
Don't misconstrue what Elric is saying.
But when Eli comes on the show, I'll be like, Eli, let's talk about your
visionary
vision.
Eli Roth.
I'm already, but yeah, no, still hate Green Inferno. So but listen to that interview.
Yeah, well, now there's an unrated director's cut of Green Inferno coming out, apparently.
Different from what I saw in theater.
I guess. What more could there be?
You Blumhouse guys do anything for a buck.
Wait, unrated? Because that one was so restrained.
I guess.
Yeah.
He just cut some scenes from Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, that would be
more masturbation and poop.
There you go.
Bekah, what did you see?
I saw a lot, but I'll fly through most of this. Forbidden Zone, I watched The Fancy New Blue. I still have no idea what the hell that movie is about, but it was a lot of fun to watch. I also watched The Fancy New Blue of The Mask, which looks absolutely amazing.
Did you watch it with glasses?
I didn't see it in 3D. I would too, because I'd love to see how the 3D plays. Curious, but just on my regular, TV and a nice the restoration and everything's really pretty. I watched The Sadist for an article I did on Blumhouse, which have you guys seen?
Yeah, is that the black and white one?
It's Arch Hall Jr.
Yeah, that was the one at one point you guys were talking about. Thought was public domain.
Yeah, it's public domain. So, like the company that I work with had talked about remaking it, and Fangoria had even chopped it at one point. And then, like, as soon as we did, like 7 other people came out of the woodwork, like, "Well, I'm already doing this." So it was like,
besides the title, I don't really see a remake. Like, it doesn't scream remake to me. But
it's everything that Rob Zombie kind of took when he made Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses, and it's Natural Born Killers. It's Starkweather and his girlfriend. I can't even remember her name. But it's a guy and a girl who take like a group of teachers hostage in a gas station and kind of torture them for an hour and a half. And in this one, because it's an older film, they're not like physically torturing them, but it's a lot of like psychological torture. And it's really hot and gross. And so it's a gritty film.
Good performance, though, I remember, by the guy.
Arch Hall Jr. is like amazing in it.
Yeah, that was a memorable thing.
It's like, and it's weird because his dad used to make all these movies and would like have him star in all of them. And most of them, he's kind of okay. But in this one, it's like, oh shit, this guy's like seriously got some acting chops. So I recommend checking out The Sadist if you haven't seen it before, just because it went on to inspire so much other stuff.
What was that on? Which company?
I don't even. Mine's on because it's public domain. There's like 50,000 different copies of it floating about. Mine's on like a compilation disc with something called The Killing Kind.
Yeah.
So, but
we used to have. There's a couple of different DVD versions of it that we used to put in the cult section at Amoeba. So it's available. It's readily available.
I have a feeling it's on YouTube too.
Probably.
So.
We have a special giveaway if you collected all 50,000 versions. Can prove that you have all 50,000 versions.
All 50,000 versions.
One photo.
Sadist.
Please send it to Bekah.
So while I was supposed to go with the guys to watch Jason Goes to Hell on Friday night, but then I ended up having to take. I had some allergy problems, and I ended up taking a lot of Benadryl, which I've learned I probably shouldn't drive or be around people on. And so I decided I was going to watch Jason X instead, which I have not seen in forever. So I plopped in Jason X. And I saw Jason X in the theater when it came out, and I was in college, and I recall it as being just fun and this great popcorn movie. And granted, I was on a lot of Benadryl through this. The first 30 minutes, I was like, this is the greatest movie ever made. It's got Cronenberg, and he just slammed that girl's head in liquid nitrogen. And for some reason in the future, all women wear crop tops. I'm not too sure why, and have perfectly chiseled abs. And the scientists
because
are like
the future is directed by a man.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, this is the greatest film ever made. And that right at the 45-minute mark, I was like, I don't have a fucking clue what's going on anymore. There's a robot.
And it gets really boring and slow somehow. I don't know how that's possible.
We dressed a robot in S&M gear and taught her to do kung fu. And this whole movie, they've been talking about what makes Jason so special is that he can regenerate flesh immediately. So then they cut him into 5 different pieces, and then they're like, okay, he's dead. Everybody, let's go over here. And I'm like, but you just spent the prior hour talking about how he can regrow limbs. So... And then it lost me, and then I was just angry. But the first 40 minutes, have you read Todd's
script for this?
No, I never have.
I wonder if
he's in it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what the script's like compared to the film.
One.
Yeah, I would love to see what it was supposed to be versus
it's
kind of what it intended.
The last part I remember going, what is going, the very ending and all the stuff with the people back on Earth, and I just didn't understand.
I don't like his RoboCop look or whatever the hell it's supposed to be.
No, that's after he regenerates.
Yeah, it's kind of goofy.
And then this is the last 20 minutes of the movie. So they're on the spaceship. They knock a hole in the wall of the spaceship, which creates the quintessential movie vacuum where everything starts getting sucked out through this hole. They're in a 10 by 10 room, and it sucks out for 20 minutes. And you're like, you guys have lost oxygen hours ago, but it just keeps going. And it's bizarre. Yeah. And it's weird when I'm getting scientific with Jason X, but it was just one of these things where I was like, I don't get it. So yeah, but the first part's fun. My favorite scene of the movie, aside from the head and liquid nitrogen, amazing. They've got this thing where it's supposed to be Star Trek-y, where they have like the holodeck, and they can create these fantasies through the hologram. And so he's chasing them, and they want to create a deterrent, so they fire up the holodeck, and it's two girls camping, and they start making out and taking their tops off, and then it cuts away, like you see him get distracted and turn back towards them, and then it cuts to everybody running, and then it cuts back to him. And he's holding one and beating the other one with one of them. And I lost my shit. That was like the best. Just hilarious. Beating one with the other one.
That is actually pretty good.
It's his take on the sleeping bag kill from Seven.
Yeah, beating her against the tree. But he's beating one with the other one. And that just killed me. And then the rest of the movie, I don't even know what happened.
I would like to revisit it, actually, because I remember, I mean, again, context. It's kind of fun. Yeah, but I don't know. You know,
I still think we make that prequel to part 3 where he's chasing the girl and he gets rapey. I'm telling you, there's something in that flashback to watch out for.
All about the rapey juice.
So then for the past 3 nights, I've done Netflix, because I've been totally into all of these like new things that they've had on Netflix. Stung was...
A lot of people have been writing to us saying that was really good.
It's not my favorite film of the year, but it's really gory and the effects are cool. And it's about a garden party where there's like wasps and they turn mutant and grow to like crazy sizes. And it sounds totally sci-fi the way that I'm describing it. But it's really fun and high caliber effects. I will say it was clearly German, shot in Germany with German cast and crew, but they're pretending that it's upstate New York, and that was a tad distracting.
But isn't Lance Henriksen in it?
He is, actually. And I mean, it's notable cast. You're going to watch it and be like, oh, it's that guy from this, and that guy, like the guy from Hellbenders is in it, and things like that. But yeah, it's weird because it's got all these weird German notes to it where like somebody will be like, I'm going to go read the paper, and then he holds up a German paper, and
Gazette.
Or let's listen to music, or the music at the garden party, and then it's like German music, and it's a little
Rammstein
distracting.
Maybe it's just Americans taking all the German cliches so they can sell it to Germany. You never know. In the modern era, that could work.
Then I tried to watch Harbinger.
That's like a burn.
I know.
It's like I tried. That's like when I tried to watch Devil's Due or whatever it was called.
And I really wanted to like Harbinger down just because I like Alex so much, but it was not my favorite film of the year. It was a little slow.
Wait, is this your new go-to line? Not my favorite film of the year. Is that how you're going to slam films now?
I think it's because I'm starting to think about my top 10 list for 2015. Yeah. But one that I have a feeling is going to be on my top 10 list, and I was surprised. Last Shift.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking loved that movie.
Oh, good. Yeah, DeBlassie's movie. Yeah, it's great.
That one, like, fucked me up in the head for a little bit while I was watching it, because I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, everybody had said, it's Assault on Precinct 13. So I was expecting, like, okay, it's going to be like a psychopathic siege movie. And it's not. It's supernatural and total head trip.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I mean, the movie... It's good.
Yeah.
I really think I definitely liked it, but I think I would have liked it a lot more if I'd seen it in a theater. Yeah. I think some of the things it was going for really would have benefited by being surrounded by there's
I saw it late at night. I had the lights off. I had the sound up. So that really like puts you in it, you know. But as I told Elric last week, there's that one moment in the middle where for me the whole thing changed. It's like when when somebody comes to see her at the station. That long,
that's a good part.
A really long, great scene. It's right in the middle, and then
he turns around.
Yeah, and that's it. And then from there on, you're like, oh, I don't know what the hell. I don't know where this is going to go from here, because that's crazy. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was expecting. Anthony's a good director, so I was expecting to be like, okay, well, this is a competent movie, but it affected me more than I thought it would, where I was actually startled a lot. And there was a lot of scenes where I was like, holy fuck. And I had to rewind it back because it was
protagonist
startling.
Too. I think that was the thing about it. It was nice to see a good, strong protagonist who felt believable. Yeah. She wasn't portrayed as a cliche at the start of the film.
So how come we never saw like a huge release?
I didn't hear anything about this till it was on Netflix.
Until it was on Netflix. And now the hype's been huge.
Yeah, you know what? That's good, because I think Magnet's the one that put it out. I bought the Blu-ray right away. And again, I didn't know it was coming out until Anthony posted about it on like Facebook and Twitter. And that's the thing, is like Anthony's making like 10 movies. He always has a movie coming out. So I didn't know about this one. And I bought it. I liked it when I saw it. And then it popped up on Netflix. And it could be kind of like, The Taking of Deborah Logan. It's one of those, it seems like it's going to be one of those word of mouth movies that people find on Netflix and really dig and recommend. But.
Yeah, it's been, because this week I always pick like 5 films on Netflix that you should see this week. And I put it on my list this week for Blumhouse. And that's the one that everybody's been talking about on Facebook under the list. Like, Harbinger down and Stung and everything. But man, Last Shift is great. Yeah. So it's getting a lot of attention.
Fucked your head up and the other one made you lose your shit. I'm wondering it's coming from all ends from Bekah.
Wow.
And the next week something will make you give birth.
I will say, Harbinger isn't bad. It just was not. I mean, I watched it on the same night.
But you said I tried, so how far did you get?
Oh, I finished it.
Oh, you finished?
Yeah.
All right.
No, and I watched it on the same night as Last Shift. So maybe it's like just... Well,
what's the problem with Harbinger? Is it the story?
Well, and that's what I said, is that it's, you know what, for us, we've seen that movie before.
It's the thing.
It's pretty much the thing. We've seen it.
It's like, but it's got like aquatic horror notes because it's the organisms that are mutating. So it's like Leviathan as well. I mean, it's just, we've seen this before.
I guess we could talk about The Thing, but might as well wait for a while.
We may have somebody who can talk about The Thing.
But I have one more quickie that I was texting Bekah about because I didn't... Man, Goodnight Mommy.
Oh, you watched it?
Oh, boy.
Should we wait till I see it so I can defend it if I like it?
I want to hear Rob because
I wish you brought it. I would have watched it.
You know what? I'm sorry. I'll make sure you get it this week. God, I'm not going to say I didn't like it because...
I don't want to hear any plot points, so that's the hard part. I avoided the trailer even.
It's frustrating. It's a really frustrating movie because... and I have to mention the trailer in this context because the trailer sells you on a movie that's very interesting. The first half of the movie is that movie, or at least implying it. But even that, they cheat. There's one thing that's really creepy in the trailer, and in the actual movie, it's two scenes cut together. So it's almost like they're selling you a scare that's not even in the movie because it's too... So that pissed me off to begin with. And not only that, but the first half of it is giving you what you expect from the trailer, but it's really boring.
I already love it.
It's just so
My favorite film of the year is going to be Goodnight Mommy.
I have a feeling it's going to piss you off because it's what I said on the show last week is exactly what Rob agreed with.
There's a shift halfway through.
Big shift midway through.
Big one.
And then the film gets lazy.
And I don't like the second. It's like two movies slammed into one, and I don't like the second movie at all.
It's going to be the Oscar.
It falls in that torture kind of category.
Yeah, it goes.
Because I've been hearing it's going to be the Oscar from that country. Like, is it Belgium? Where is it from?
I guess.
Or Germany, one of the countries. It's going to be its Oscar entry.
The only reason I don't flat out, I was having a tough time while I was watching it, being like, really? Like, you have so much potential and this is what you do? And the only reason I don't flat out hate it is because the ending was interesting. I'm not going to give it away, obviously.
Yeah.
But it also, I mean, it's not surprising. Like, obviously, because there's a tonal change halfway through, that also means that there's a twist set up. So once it was all revealed, it wasn't like one of those like, oh, wow, that's amazing. It was kind of a frustrating twist where now you're like, Now I want to watch it again and see if you earned that.
You didn't. I see. Yeah.
I don't think you earned it. I don't know if that actually works.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I will wait.
Instead of making me appreciative of the twist and going, "Oh, that was so badass," the way they did that, it made me go, "I don't think you did that."
Yeah, I don't think you did that right. I'm like, wait, I'm thinking back, but it's like, oh, but I don't want to sit through that fucking boring half of that movie again. So I kind of want to revisit it just to see, now that I know all that, what the story is.
Yeah, I want to see it. I'm dying.
But this is what I've been hearing from everybody is it's either like you really like it and you're like, oh, it's so artistic, best film of the year, or you're like, this was really frustrating and I wasn't into it and I don't think it earned the twist.
Yeah. But that's why I'm worried here, because a lot of my favorite films have been ones that have frustrated you guys.
No, but I mean, it's so weird. Again, the slow-paced nature of the first half of it, it doesn't seem like there's nothing...
Now that you guys are at Blumhouse, I'm always 1 week behind you at movies. You'll be like, I watch Ghost Story, and then I watch it the next week. Or you watch this, and then I watch it the next week.
For like
we need to get on the same page.
I had my Goodnight Mommy screener back in like August. I kept offering it to you guys. Yes, I
wanted to wait for a Blu-ray of it, and now that I've seen it,
I was going to see it in theaters, but
and I thought about seeing it in theaters too. But anyway, I'm really curious because
we can open it up more once I've seen it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big divide movie. I want to hear what you have to say, and obviously what our listeners have to say, because it seems like everyone's kind of mixed on it, either one way or the other. So
I can't believe that it's going to be like an Oscar movie.
Yeah, well,
potentially.
it's foreign film, so it's definitely their submission. That doesn't mean they will be chosen as one of the 5 films, but it probably will be just because it's gone distribution here, and most foreign don't even get it. Okay, that might be enough.
It looks pretty.
All right, we'll see what Elric says.
Yeah.
Till then.
Big news: script supervisor of 16 Candles in the house. I mean, Breakfast Club.
16 Candles.
16 Candles.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. right now we're very pleased to have this guest with us because it's somebody that we wanted to have on pretty much for all of this year. And thankfully, schedules and the stars have aligned. And just going over, dare I say, your resume, but seeing all the things and the different filmmakers and people you've worked with over the years, it's really amazing and impressive. Script supervisor, producer, writer. Welcome to the show, Sandy King Carpenter.
Stand-up comedian.
In
terms of Q&As, very impressed with the Prince of Darkness Q&A. I turned to him. He had been saying he was hoping to have you on as a guest, and I just leaned over to him again. We really got to get her on as a guest. She's hilarious.
And I was like, that's what I would say.
No pressure.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Last time we saw you were in a small church watching that movie. Was that weird?
No.
Okay, good. All right, move on.
Done. Next.
Next.
Well, you know what? Then let's go backwards a little bit because the thing that both you and John have been kind of immersed in as of late is kind of the comic book world. And I picked up the Tales of a Halloween Night book last month, which was really, really cool. A lot of interesting writers and collaborators on it. But I mean, you know, how long have you kind of been playing in that world? Because in terms of storytelling, I always find comics fascinating because it's not like kind of thinking of a budget for a movie and like, can we do this? Can we not? Sky's the limit when it comes to writing for comics. You can do whatever you want because they can draw it. So when did like kind of that become, delving into the comic world, something that both you and John were interested in fully pursuing?
Well, for years, people have come to him and wanted to put his name on comics, usually because they were shitty comics and they just wanted to sell them using his brand. But we then had a story that originally Thomas Ian Griffith brought to me and said, you know, what do you think? I've got this character. He's got the gift of discernment. That was kind of cool. We were thinking a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing out of it. And we were going to develop it as a TV show. This was over 10 years ago. And everybody said it was too dark, which is what they always say about everything we start to develop. And we went through various incarnations with that, revisited it 10 years later when House and various other darker shows got done. And in the middle of a meeting at a studio that had accepted the show, I realized that they still didn't get it. They didn't get the story behind what we were doing. And they kept saying, can't we make it a sleepy little town on the East Coast? Can't we make it, like... I said, well, actually, no, this is set in downtown L.A. The devil's coming through, City of Angels. It's supposed to be a practical joke, but there's a texture to it. There's the Santa Ana winds. It's the way it looks like hell on earth. And this little assistant development person said, well, it's not like it's a graphic novel or anything. I said, actually, it is. And I got kicked by Thomas Ian Griffith, who, as you know, is a 6'5" giant person, an agent, a manager, everybody under the table at the same time. We walked out and went, what the fuck? And I said, I don't want to have another meeting like that. I don't want to do this as a TV show. It's a comic book. Went home. John said, how'd it go? And I said, we're doing a comic book. And we cross over in audiences with gamers, with comic book people, with movies. And it seemed like the right thing to do. So we spent about 2 years researching how to make comics, because it seemed really presumptuous to just say we make movies, so we could obviously make comics. It's a different format. And by trial and error, a lot of error, we got to our first issue. And the comic book community has been great to us. We had to prove we came in peace, that we weren't trying to rape and pillage everybody. But I think that it was the right thing to do to have John in the comic world. And he was involved in all that original story and all of that original, every page that we do of Asylum. And then when it felt like we were up and running enough, it seemed natural to do the anthology of Halloween Nights. And it seemed like something was missing, that we could come out every Halloween with a new anthology. So the first one was 100 pages. Next year's will be 200 pages.
And how did you, there's people like David Scow, who's a good friend of ours that contributed a story. How did you come on, is it 6 stories? I'm trying to remember. How did you
6
come
stories
upon,
with a wraparound.
And obviously you wrote one, John wrote one, but how did you come upon the other contributors? Were it people that were recommended to you, people that you and John were fans of, or?
got drunk down at Comic-Con.
That's how a lot of business happens.
Yeah. I give a dinner every year down in San Diego, and we were all sitting around. Originally, it was going to be a 3-story floppy that gave all the comic book stores something at Halloween. We didn't have anything out that we were promoting or anything special for the fans. And it grew courtesy of Tim Bradstreet, who was sitting next to me and said, no, I think there needs to be more. And he said, Scow needs to write a comic. I said, Scow's never written a comic. He said, yeah, he can write a comic. His friend was Dwayne. Dwayne said, yeah, I'll help him write a comic. They were pitching a story to me, and then Dwayne real quietly said, but I'd like to write one. I went, well, who's going to turn down Dwayne Swazinski? Yeah, fine. And then, it was who you put with which artist, and just did it, just fell to place.
And actually, I asked Scow about this, and he wrote a comic once, but as he puts it, kind of failed miserably, which was the Leatherface adaptation.
Oh, shit. He wrote that?
Yeah, he's crazy. Like, I did the first one, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I left it.
Wow.
So it was pretty
Yeah,
fun.
we count that as not having written it.
Now, how do you go about selecting the art with these? I mean, did you guys approach with, here's how I want the art for this particular story to look, or did the artist propose things?
Well, with Scow, I know his tone in writing, and I really felt that Derek could be both supportive and handhold the rough spots, but that the tenor of his drawing would go with the tone of Scow's writing. With Dwayne, he had an artist that he liked working with. So I said, fine, do that. And, I just kind of, it's like movie producing. You just kind of see it in your mind and go, yeah, that guy goes with that, it's just puzzle pieces.
Have you found, it's funny because for a while there, Hollywood was picking up anything that was a comic book or graphic novel, they were optioning the rights to make into movies. And consider how frustrating it is to pitch ideas and hear things like, this is too dark or we don't get it or whatever.
Set it in the East Coast Sleepy Town.
Yeah. Has there been, not so much with Tales of Halloween Night since that just came out, but has there been a shift? Have people been interested now to be like, hey, let's make the Asylum movie or adapt this into something?
I just don't really care. I've got other things that we're doing that way. And it makes a good comic book.
Yeah.
We're happy with that.
All right, good.
Does the working in like that more episodic world of comics, does that also interest you in like seeing the big shift towards actually, incredible TV nowadays? Have you guys been also developing TV? I think I remember you said something on stage. I don't know how specific.
TV's a lot more interesting now for two reasons. One is that they're more daring. And in the world we would move in, cable.
Yeah.
We're not probably major network appropriate. Or at least they don't think so. But I find that a lot of really good writing is going on in cable. Their ideas are more open, and consequently, we've got 4 projects at studios right now.
Well, you also get amazing things like one director doing the entire show, which, not many have done that, but like that first season of True Detective, you're like, there's a reason that's so strong.
Yeah.
And then the second everyone's surprised isn't as good, I'm like, well, that's also part of the reason is you've taken one of the storytellers out of the equation, And,
well, but I also think that, I know everybody bagged on that second season because they were looking for the same thing the second time, whereas it was the same universe.
Right.
I thought it rocked. I thought in certain ways it was stronger.
It had lots of cool stuff. For me, I think I was just so into... I think it was the stuff that it never fully goes in the first one is the kind of metaphysical stuff, but it hints at it, but doesn't ever fully go there either. That was probably what drew me in. But.
It just fucked with you because you really wanted it to turn out to be a green moss monster.
Yeah, some sort of supernatural thing.
But, that I think is the brilliance of that particular storytelling. Defying expectation. And those are the great dares that are going on in TV. They're so much more interesting. And it kind of doesn't matter if there's one part of the audience that's going to go get pissy about it. They're still going to play through. It's still going to happen. And that's what's cool about the Netflix, the HBOs, and those that are buying the season and letting the story get told. and not being quite as dictated to by the expectations, because then you only get what's already been done.
Right. Do you like that model where they're releasing it all at once for that kind of binge model? Or do you prefer, because that kind of kills a little bit the episodic side of things where you wait and have anticipation?
But I love it.
Most of us do. I'm just curious if that's something you would be interested in having if you were going to release a series. Would you release it like that, or would you rather it be eked out?
It's not my call.
Yeah.
That part isn't. I mean, I would love the opportunity to be able to shoot the whole thing.
Right.
And then however people consume it, they consume it.
Yeah.
But I love the thought that one way or another, the whole thing gets made and you kind of see what the point was. Because everything gets reinterpreted later anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So, with time and distance, reviews get rewritten, people rewatch things, depending on the stage of life they're in, all of that kind of stuff. And that's kind of fun. And I like it in that longer format. We can tell different types of stories.
What you mentioned True Detective before. What are some of the other TV shows that are kind of exciting to you story wise at the moment? What's some of the stuff that you're watching?
I love The Nick. I like The Killing. Trying to think what else. I mean, those are the ones that stand out to me where you just go, wow, that's really cool.
The Nick's really good. I need to catch up on that one.
Yeah. I mean, there's just really great characters and things going on. And I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV. Quite frankly, I've been so busy writing and doing that I don't watch a whole lot, or I read books.
Well, the other shift is you have real talented actors doing. Clive Owen's being the lead in your TV series makes it different.
Yeah, I mean, Colin Farrell being the lead in your TV series. I mean, those things didn't used to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that just makes TV a lot more interesting.
Stigma's gone of being a TV actor. You can cross back over, which you maybe couldn't have before.
And the same thing for us.
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of going, why aren't you doing TV? Like, well, that's new.
Yeah. But of course, you've done a bunch of TV in your career before. So I wanted to, the first film I wanted to ask you about, because I didn't know about this one on your resume till today.
And we're big fans.
I'm a big Cassavetes fan, so I was curious because I started Killing of a Chinese Bookie. But the first thing that comes to mind, and I read Script Supervisor, first thing with his work is always like, I wonder how hard it is to be the script supervisor on the way he works in the improv. Is it really impossible? Like, what does that look like?
It's labor intensive.
Yeah, I believe it.
Well, the things people didn't understand about Cassavetes is the actors showed up each day knowing the script perfectly. There was a script. They knew it perfectly. They would rehearse. Then they would improvise based off that rehearsal. I would retype a new script based off of what was determined. Then they knew that script perfectly.
Interesting.
Wow.
So it just was always being revised.
Then we shot that script.
So you had a lot of scripts to look after.
Well, a couple.
Yeah.
And so, I would be in bathrooms, with a typewriter on the back of a toilet, retyping the script, and that would be the one that was shot.
How'd you get in to start having that as your first feature?
Actually, I was selling sandwiches for the Movable Feast on La Cienega was my route. My boyfriend was assistant cameraman. I blew a tire on down at Wilshire and La Cienega. Had it with that job anyway. It was the final straw. Took my baskets of sandwiches up to Alice Cooper's office.
I love stories.
Yeah, I mean, this is like,
this is such an LA story.
And it's like serendipity, Alice years later.
Yeah.
They'd always been a good client. And I said, here, free sandwiches. I'm quitting. You can keep the baskets.
So punk.
And I walked up to the Melting Pot, which was in at Clifton and La Cienega, where they were shooting, and said, I'll load magazines for free. And so I started as an assistant camera person. Their script supervisor got in the union that day, and I took over being script supervisor, which I'd been doing on AFI films and other things like that. And that's how I wound up working on the Cassavetes film.
Yeah, and tell people, because this is one of those roles. I always whenever I'm teaching, I always tell film students like literally the best gig if you wanted to learn what a director is would probably being a script supervisor. But I don't think a lot of people know what that means, because it used to have that negative script girl, which doesn't sound like anywhere near the kind of work you're going to have to do for that position.
Hey, call me anything. Jackie Cooper had a thing made up. I remember a glittered T-shirt calling me the script bitch. And a chair made up. I didn't care what they called me.
But yeah, just let people know a little bit what that job requires on a feature, like when you're working closely with some of these directors we're going to be mentioning.
It's a liaison between the shooting crew, the editorial staff, and production. And on the face of it, you're keeping track of it used to be every piece of film. Now it's every time the camera rolls. You have a log of it so it can be found. And then, so that's the sound, the film, or whatever the hell it is now. And what happened every take. And that means every take that was good, every take that was complete, every take that was incomplete, all the matching notes, all of that. So the editor who wasn't there has an eye on the set. You have a lined script on the opposite facing page. That shows you how far. So it's a codified picture of what was shot on each scene. And they can put the film together from that. You're also keeping a record of the shooting day. And that includes what your call times were, when your first shot was, all of the types of things that production needs in order to know where they are in the shooting of the overall picture. And you're keeping a record of how long the film is running, which also tells production, and in the case of a major picture to studio, whether you're going to come in on time on your schedule. So you have all of those things that you're going in between. But the biggest thing that you are is you are the overall continuity in the director's head if you're doing it right. Because in the heat of everything, they tend to lose their way, or anybody loses their way. And you're supposed to be the one that knows whether the tone of the scene is the same, the energy is the same, not just whether their sleeves are rolled the same, but whether they're doing what they intended to do.
I mean, what's funny is it's like the only other role besides the director that really has to pay close attention constantly. There's no break. You can't, go out like the sound guy, drift off into your La La Land. You're always focused on. And I just think it's really interesting because I don't think there's ever really been much credit given to that role. Mm-hmm. But clearly, it's a great way to learn what directors do. Now,
it being such a meticulous role, what kind of attracted you to that from the beginning, as opposed to other roles on set?
I think it was just my personality, and that's where it fell. Originally, the first jobs open on an AFI film were continuity or caterer. And I kind of tried to look up what they might be. I thought, well, I could cook. That doesn't sound very interesting. And it was the old thing of, guys always say they went into rock and roll to attract girls. Well, I thought my boyfriend was a film major. I was art major next door. I thought, well, I'll do something that, is in live action because I came from animation. So I thought, continuity. Okay, I know how to match up pieces of film. You have to do that in animation. So I thought, I've got a background that can I understand lenses because I came from still photography as well. I can figure this out, and I could. I lied my way into a job up at AFI, and they asked me, what kind of book I kept, and I said standard. I just answered anything to get the job. Mm-hmm. And then it was lunchtime, and I went and stole a couple pages out of a book in an editing room, Xeroxed them, and went home and figured it out.
Did one gig at that point lead to another? Was it kind of a fluid thing? You finished that shoot, somebody said, hey, we're rolling on something else?
Yeah, I think probably nobody else would do the jobs.
What was the set? What did you follow that one up with?
Well, I did a lot of second units for Corman.
Oh. I didn't know that part.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I did tons of they would do things.
The actual directed by Roger ones or him producing?
No, I only worked for, Roger only directed one thing that I was on where he was, I can't remember what it was. He worked one night and flamed out.
That means you join a long list of all our best guests.
All our best guests worked on Corman.
All our favorite stories on the show have been somebody who worked with Roger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because a bunch of us that came up at the same time, you worked for Roger.
Yeah.
That was the deal. And I probably worked with all those guests, with Alan Arkush and Dante and all those people. They were in the editing room.
Right.
Because they all came from the editing room. Then they'd get their shot directing a second unit. Then they'd get their shot directing a first unit. So I came up through, Grand Theft Auto and
Ron Howard, yeah.
Yeah, well, but I was second unit.
Oh,
second,
cool. Oh, that would be a fun one to see.
First unit shot like 11 minutes.
Yeah.
second
Stock
unit.
footage 70, and you did the rest.
And we blew up everything.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, we're just looking at the list, and it was kind of overwhelming because there was like directors like obviously Walter Hill, you know, whose writing gets overlooked. I think a lot of the time people forget how great a writer he is. He's a really strong director. But Michael Mann's first film, Thief.
Yep.
Wow.
I'm just curious how some of these people differ, like, and what you learn about the different approaches, because directing is something that can obviously be so radically different between what people do on it, how they control set, how they work with people. Just with Walter Hill and Michael Mann, I'm curious because I think sometimes they get kind of lumped together in a type of movie. What were some of the differences between them as filmmakers?
Well, I'd say, well, if you're looking through, you know, the big names that I worked with, they're really different in their approach. They're really different in what interests them. Walter likes the Western genre. At the time, he was reading John Ford's biography, so he changed from wearing a watch cap to wearing a black cowboy hat, depending on which chapter he was reading. You know, went from smoking a cigar to smoking a pipe. I mean, it was like, you know, method directing. And for the most part, a lot of Walter's movie was made in the editing room. He just covered the hell out of everything. We'd have 6 cameras rolling. But I'd say with Walter, it was love for the genre, which he then got to really play out in Deadwood.
Yeah.
I think is the next time he really got to do what he wanted. Long Riders, he was lucky because he had all the brothers who had done the play on Broadway who really backed him doing what he wanted there. Now, it was the era of UA making really expensive, overblown films. He was in the middle of that, and they had just done Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, big ball for them.
And, you know, so they were getting really leery. Actually, Thief was also for UA. So I was involved in 2 that were going wildly over budget.
And Thief's the first film, right? That's his director.
Well, he had done
right?
Jericho Mile. It was his
that's
first
right,
feature.
The TV movie, yeah. But
and so each time, in each case, you had those 2 directors were, say, totally different from John, who you tell him a budget, he's going to do the budget. Michael and Walter do not give a shit about the budget. They're just going to keep shooting until somebody shoots them. I would say Michael is all about style.
Yeah.
If you look at all of his films, they're really stylish. They have a certain look to them, almost to his detriment.
It's almost fetishistic by then, yeah.
Yeah, because what you see is Michael's style as opposed to the character's style.
Right.
Walter wants real detail work. He wants things to look really accurate. And like you say, his writing is underestimated. He can do an on-set rewrite like that, sometimes a little too facilely. When you start realizing, haven't I heard that somewhere before? He has more in common with John Milius.
Right.
Real similar kinds of writing styles and that kind of thing. But he can rework a scene if it isn't working right on the spot. So in that way, you know, there are like Michael, also a writer-director. He's not as willing to rework. He has those words down. They're going to be the words no matter what happens.
There's that one scene that when I think about that movie, the only thing I usually always come back to is that diner scene. It's a long dialogue scene where he's talking about prison. In a very honest, raw, kind of shocking way to her, and they're kind of opening up to each other.
That's essentially a 2-shot with 37 pieces of coverage.
Wow.
Shot over 2 days.
I love how you can remember that from your script. Yeah, the way you recalled that instantly. It's like,
oh, yeah, you know.
It's great.
Yeah, 37 pieces of coverage in a Howard Johnson's over a freeway.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yet it feels just like you're watching almost like an improv long take. You know what I mean? It has that kind of...
Nothing improv at all.
Yeah, interesting.
Nothing. And that's a testament largely to James Caan's ability. You want to talk, you know, insane matching and that kind of stuff for 2 days, 2 nights worth of shooting through long, long dialogue takes.
That's really surprising. I wouldn't have picked that. I know Rob's dying to ask you about one particular movie.
Yeah,
because we had the director on.
I'm not dying.
But you just saw it again.
But I want to hear it because
I'm actually excited. I'm excited about all the Thief talk because Thief and Manhunter are playing at the New Beverly this weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing them on the big screen again. They're alluding to Blue Sunshine just because.
Oh my God!
Jeff has been on the show.
He's like an old friend of ours. We hosted a screening of Blue Sunshine.
And we know you're a big disco person, so we figured you're the disco queen.
No, I'm just curious about because I've always liked the film, but Jeff was just in town and showed this new 4K restoration, and it felt like
which we're going to be on the DVD of.
I don't know. I bet we will get cut out.
But it felt like seeing the movie for the first time again, and it's such a weird movie. Was it as weird in '78 when you were making it as it is now?
Man, you just took whatever job you were offered in those days. Here's the deal. The group of people I came up with all took pride in whatever film we did. I mean, it didn't matter what it was. You did your best job possible. Mm-hmm. I find it's a little disconcerting these days because everybody is so snotty about the quality of what they're doing or how artsy they are. I mean, we came up doing artsy stuff. I did Eraserhead. So did everybody else in L.A. at the time. It shot for 2 damn years. Everybody did.
You worked on it for a little while?
Oh, sure. Everybody did Eraserhead.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that analogy, that everyone's had a couple days on that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk art? Yeah, we did art. Yeah, but the thing was that as a crew person, you do your best job on every film. I mean, one of the best jobs I ever did is on Blue Sunshine, in the scene where the big murders occur at night at the cabin, and he runs out at night, and it comes back around.
Amazing sweaters on,
and the sun comes up, and the cop cars are there, and it's dawn. It goes all the way to full daylight. There was no computer, lock offs. There's nothing like that. We didn't have any high tech stuff. Yeah. That matching job, those lenses, all that kind of stuff, that was done by us. That was rock and work. It didn't matter if it was on a film where everybody took acid and their eyeballs turned silver and they murdered people. So what? It was great work done by that crew, and you take pride in it. And I think that that's something I see a little bit lost nowadays when you kind of see people and you go, oh, what? So somebody young, you go, so what are you working on?
Something, whatever.
Yeah, well, you better learn to put your work, your heart into it, or you're not going to do anything else.
Yeah. And I guess we do get to take a lot for granted now, like even just thinking about how you would coordinate the passage of time now. Now it's just like, oh, I'll just get that in post. Or, let's shoot day for night.
Everything is in post, and everything's a little bit lazy. And I think that a lot of the people coming up through that time became some of the best DPs now, some of the high-end guys who are winning the awards and stuff, because they all trained under, when I was working at AFI, the DPs that came and helped the students were Vilmos Sigmund and, other really high-end guys that were helping the students. You learned under masters, and you learned lighting, you learned everything else because you couldn't just fix it. And it wasn't with the red out there that would forgive anything. And it wasn't digital where you could see into the dark. And I think
the apprenticeship idea is kind of lost now. The idea of working your way up through something too is pretty much gone.
That's going to be a big loss.
Yeah.
I think you'll see it more and more as more of the old guard dies out, because I don't think that training's taking place. And you see it in too many movies now where it really starts to all look like, we used to make a joke about Canadian television, how it all looked like, green video.
Well, you couldn't be in the field about to shoot a film and go for the first time, open a 35 millimeter camera and work it out. And I remember seeing I think it was the Almost Human Q&A last year, and they're like, oh, we hadn't really ever used, I think it was the red or something. They go, we'd never used it before, but the day before you figured it out. And then you got your brains kind of boggled because you're like, oh, wow, you could never have done that in that way before, because you would have to have an education of lenses and, even just loading the thing is a skill. So
But look at the difference in digital shot by Cronenworth with Clyde Bryant as an assistant cameraman and real gaffers and stuff, versus the kids out there with a red who haven't had any apprenticeship, haven't had any lighting training. You'll see the difference. It doesn't matter that, yeah, you'll get an image, but will you get art?
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference. Who can paint with it?
Right.
How do we get that same thing in digital, which is what a lot of the masters and a lot of the people really who are trying to make it still a great cinematic experience.
Did you have a favorite of all these films that you had worked on, a favorite DP that you had worked, or just somebody that you really enjoyed watching them work throughout those various films?
Oh, well, there were a lot of them. I mean, I always thought that the DPs were, Donnie Thorin on Thief was amazing. I'm going to blow this. Who did the Coppola films?
Rumblefish and the Outsiders. Rumblefish, especially, is one of the best looking movies. Period.
I can see his face too.
He can look it up, and it'll be like.
I'm already on it.
This is so not okay. But in that one for Rumblefish, the amount of research into figuring out how to make the black and white look as dense because there wasn't as much silver in the emulsion. How to kick it into the color.
It's very unique black and white. Like, it really pops. And then it has a little bit of color in that one scene with, like, the fish.
There's color pops in at the ending, in different places where you see the hair color matches on the...
Stephen H. Burham?
It's Steve Burham. That's it.
That's a film that feels like it's ripe for becoming like a modern classic, like a rediscovered thing that people maybe... I think I saw it on like TCM not long ago, so it was a perfect print, and I was floored by it. It had never been one of the ones in my mind. And also Diane Lane. It's just like knocks you out how ridiculously attractive this young Diane Lane was in that film.
And you see the in the making of it, the art department painted the shadows of trees on the White House. Did all of these things that just really tricked everything out because they were using Bicycle Thief's look as the template. And same thing there were shadows painted in the pool hall. All that kind of stuff. I mean, that's real artistry going into everything.
What was Coppola like during that period? Because I guess that was right after, a little bit after, obviously, Apocalypse Now was obviously a maddening shoot for him, but was he still taking like bold risks in everything he was trying to get done in that period?
Well, he and John Carpenter worked the most similarly of any two people. Though they're entirely different men, they both see things a lot the same way. They work out a lot of stuff in rehearsal so that the shooting goes the way they anticipate it. So I'd say they're my two favorite directors.
Oh, cool.
Francis is nuts. Well documented by Ellie on Apocalypse.
Yeah, well documented by his wife.
So it's not a secret. But he's very much in control of what he expects that image to be. So Outsiders was from the get-go the Gold LeMay G-rated movie. And then it was supposed to be that Rumblefish would be the harder down to the language. Everything was different in the two films, even though we used similar cast, and Matt Dillon was in both. And so we would have to get Matt's head into two different characters, particularly when we were shooting both at the same time at one point.
Oh, I never knew that. I knew they were close to it. I didn't realize the same time.
We were shooting pickup shooting on both at the same time.
Huh. Wow.
We shut down Outsiders, started rehearsals on Rumblefish, went back and shot pickup shooting on Outsiders, then shot Rumblefish, then went back and shot pickups on both.
Wow.
I'd be shot if I didn't ask you about 16 Candles because it's my wife's favorite film.
I was waiting.
And he's a word perfect, from what I've always heard about him, he's kind of a word perfect director. So because he's a writer-director, I'm curious, was that a different kind of, when you're script supervisor, does that mean you have to be far more on it just to make sure nothing gets lost for someone like that? Or is he?
Well, he had a different problem in that he had never had to visualize something. He only wrote. It was his first movie.
Oh, that's right.
So in that one, I was sent in like the Trojan horse because I could look young and hip, because once upon a time I was young and hip. And they were worried about him handling a feature. So I got called in by Universal, and they said, okay, look, we've got problems. He's in rehearsal. Everybody says he's really scattered, and he's only into the kids. I'm like, so you understand I do work for the director, and I'm just responsible to you. You do know I'm on his side. They go, yeah. Go fix it. I'm like, all right, how bad could this be? And it, the problem was that he had a DP that was one of the old guard establishment at Universal, and an AD, also the same way, who didn't care about the movie. And it's the first time I'd ever worked a movie where there were people who didn't give a shit about the product because, I don't know, but kind of code of the West is nothing matters but the movie. Your ego isn't supposed to matter. And these guys only cared about their golf time on the days off and their reservations at the French restaurant. And as far as they were concerned, if they were on schedule and there was an image on the film, it wasn't their fault if the film was bad. So they weren't going to help this guy. They had some grudge that this guy was getting a break.
That sucks.
Wow.
To hear
Big
that.
time.
Yeah. Did he feel that? Was he feeling that pain?
He was oblivious. He didn't know he was getting set up.
Yeah.
So that was one of the only times where it was the first time I've ever been faced with that, where I sat there and went, whoa, this guy's walking into a blender. But you don't want him to lose his confidence or be distracted by that. So this is where Gary Kibbe became my big ally. Gary Kibbe was the camera operator.
Yeah, that's right. I remember.
And we would see things start to happen, like his coverage. He would wind up getting shot into a corner. And I'd be going to Gary going, we need to, hand signals. I'm giving them hand signals. And so what wound up happening was I wound up having to, it finally came to the executive, Ned Tannen was the executive producer, and he said to me, he said, I don't know why you're causing problems on this set. And I said, okay, take a walk. Let me tell you what's happening to your director. He's getting set up. And I don't know what to tell you, but if you want this film finished, you better let the camera operator and I help him in some way, or you're going to have unusable film. And he's talented and he can do this, but you can't shoot him in the foot. And so what I used to do was make storyboards for John Hughes at night and say, tell me what you see. Tell me what you want to see. That's the only way you're going to be able to tell your DP what to do. And we got through it.
You literally saved John Hughes. You literally made all our childhoods better by being good at your job.
Breakfast Club if it was not.
Well, I think that in that case, there were just a couple of people who saw it coming down who were able. That's when you have to say, crew people can save your ass.
Yeah.
If you just don't beat them up. And there's some directors that can learn that and some that need to learn that. And in that case, there were guys like angels on this guy's side.
And I know nothing particularly special happened on Starman, but when you did Script Super on it, it's just another movie, But we should move into John's work. But and Starman is such a transitionary work for him, and it's a really beautiful. It's one of the movies I need to go back and rewatch it because it's been a few years, but it is a boldly different film in a lot of ways for him, and it's got a love story at the heart of it. This is going to sound paparazzi, but did you guys when you work with somebody like that? How soon do you realize there's some sort of relationship there other than professional, or is that something that developed over a long time period? It's not. This doesn't sound as unclassy as because they're married. It's not like it's Kim Kardashian.
It's okay.
For Christ's sake,
it's okay.
It's not Lamar Odom. And you can give us a bullshit answer too. Just know that you don't have to tell me the truth if there's.
We'll accept whatever you tell us.
These things happen.
Yeah.
No, what was really funny was when I met him in the interview, because if you're a smart crew person, you also interview back because you're going to be stuck with this person for a while. Not all people are stuck with the person they interview with for 30 years, but...
hell of a job.
It was
interview.
a good interview.
But, I was trying to get to the bottom of why he didn't have a regular script supervisor, because I've always felt that, there's certain key people you should kind of keep around you. And he was mumbling about, well, I don't know, they get weird, they do whatever. And I kind of said, well, look, I don't want to be your best friend. I need to get inside your head to help you. But I don't need to be your best friend. I know you're a celebrity director kind of thing,
Were you how aware of his work were you, besides his name? I mean, had you seen the work or not? Okay.
Yeah, I'd seen it all.
Yeah.
And, well, to preface this, I at the time was involved with somebody else who was going on the show on the rigging crew, and had said, hey, and had, when I was doing 16 Candles, he'd been working on Christine. He said, this director would really like you. You ought to get in with this director. And so he said, Starman's coming up, trying to apply to work for him. And I didn't apply to work with people. They either wanted me or they didn't. I got drunk and I wrote a letter saying, I, like the other 180 other out-of-work script supervisors, would love to work with you. And I couldn't think of what else. I don't even remember what I wrote. Threw it, and there was a mailbox at the end of my street. Next morning, I'm going, oh, man. Tried to get it out of the mailbox, couldn't get it out of the mailbox, and just went, okay, so that's a job gone, because I'm going to look like a jerk. Apparently, it was a funny letter.
Yeah.
Which is how I got...
good drunk. You're in a good drunk.
I was a good drunk.
A good drunk.
And I got called in for the interview where he's just going, who's the loony that wrote this? Let's meet her.
That's fine.
And, but, so our whole interview got off on this thing where he went, why don't you want to be my friend? I went, no, I didn't say I didn't want to be your friend. I said, this is getting all out of control, but why don't you have anybody you like to work with? Because I think this is an issue.
Therapist as well. That's good.
And then there seemed to be all these people like running interference for you. You got to understand, I'm going to ask you questions. He's like, there's people running interference? I go, yeah, you got a whole bunch of them you got to go through to get to you. It's like, oh. And so anyhow, he wound up hiring, I guess so there were phone calls and, I get hired. And then he still kept going, so how come you don't want to be my friend? I'm like, Jesus. I'm your friend, okay? Good?
It's funny. But he's obviously another person hugely influenced by the Westerns. Kind of like, not going to say he's like Walter Hill, but in that same, Howard Hawks obviously being one of the big ones he's often going to reckon. What did you learn about him as a director because also this is a movie, it's still kind of singular in his filmography as being, there's something about the warmth to the tone of that film that I think, even though it's about a cold, it's alien character, it always just feels incredibly warm to me.
Well, I think it is his love story.
Yeah.
It's where he departs. In that it's probably one of the only ones that doesn't have an anti-hero.
Right.
It isn't a Western for him, whereas Buck Flower always said all Carpenter films are Westerns.
Yeah.
It is a departure in that regard. So it is the Carpenter love story.
What did you like about the way he worked as a director? Because obviously you did sign up to keep working with him after that. Was there something in the process of working with him just on a professional level that he responded to?
Yeah, he's real clear. He's very clear. He's very concise. Again, it's a matter for me. What was the directors I liked working for? I could get in their heads. I could find out what they needed. I could provide what they needed, and it made it a better machine. So you felt good when you go, yeah, okay, I've got it. I've got my corner of the universe here. I can be of assistance, and that felt good. So as a working relationship, that's still that way. Whether I'm working on a second unit, whether I'm casting, whatever I'm doing with him, I can get inside his head. I know pretty much where he's going to go. And that only grew through the years.
How big it doesn't sound like, from your personality, it doesn't sound like it's a big leap, but to producing from script, because obviously you script supered quite a few of his films, but then you make this transition to producing. Was that just totally natural by that stage for you?
Yeah, because I'd already been associate producing other things away from him before I ever met him. I'd already been a unit manager on commercials and product films. I just didn't like being... I didn't like agents and attorneys that much. I didn't like that side of the business as much. I liked being on the set. But by virtue of my relationship with him, I kept being forced more into producer capacity. I've now found a way to like it more. I found a way to get the same problem solving that I used to really get off on script supervising I can do as a producer, and make that more fun. You know, I still have to do contracts and stuff that I'm not as interested in. Selling, which I'm not as interested in. But I work on the set. I generally have an office that's in a trailer on the set, and I keep the same hours as the set plus more. So it works.
I have a strange question that only you might be able to answer to me. One of my, I'm probably speak for a lot of fans, but like one of my absolute favorite of his, like, you know, later films, In the Mouth of Madness, I just think is a really sublime movie. But I also remember reading something. I'm from New Zealand, so Sam Neill's my favorite actor. But I read somewhere that John had said something like that was one of his favorite actors to use in memoirs. What was the quality of that work and work making that film? What is the quality that you felt Sam brought as a person to those films that he responded to and you responded to?
Well, I think that what makes any actor fun for John is their ability, is a matter of mutual trust. Sam, Jeff Bridges, Kurt Russell, all fall into that category of trust. And, you know, Sam shows up and he looks like the absent-minded professor from some English university, you know, in kind of a ripped sweater, you know.
We call it a jersey in New Zealand.
Yeah, but he definitely doesn't look like the hero of the soldier movies he used to do, or from Jurassic or any of those. Yeah. And then he will transform in front of you into whatever John is looking for. And he can be evil like he was in Memoirs, or he can turn into this baffled protagonist of In the Mouth of Madness. And then he's just pleasant to work for. He's respectful. He likes the crew. You know, he's just not brain damaged to deal with. And he likes the Beach Boys. So,
and now he makes wine, so he's a good friend to have. He could send you wine.
Yeah, you know, but I'd say, you know, those are the kinds of things where you just show up and you all have a good time doing the work. I mean, we're not neurosurgeons.
Yeah.
We just want to show up and get the job done in a really pleasant way. Those guys all do that.
Was that a fun shoot? That looks like a fun movie to me because you have so many different tones. You have like this Lovecraft creature stuff. You have the guy going stark raving mad by the end. It feels film noir-y. Yeah, it feels like a noir at the start.
Pulpy at the same time.
Yeah.
Good.
It's cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, we generally have a pretty good time.
And does fun translate to good movie on a set, or have some of the ones you've had the least fun on turned out to be the best movie? Is there any pattern to that or not usually?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, I have to say, generally, when you've got the problem solved and everybody's solving problems together, it's a pretty decent time. It doesn't mean you're not busting your ass or dying in the rain somewhere. But our idea of a good time is maybe not everybody else's.
Do you ever, did any, I don't know, I can't remember with Escape from LA, but were there any big studio battles that you ever had to fight like that were hurting the movie or that you ever impeded on what you guys were trying to get done?
I wasn't the producer on that, but I think that the biggest problem they had on that was a delivery date and a release date. They were up against a crunch. So normally, I mean, you learn something every movie. On that one, you learn try not to back into a release date because it really helps to have extra time to look at things and judge yourself. And post-production time matters just as much as prep time.
Yeah, and that was a pretty effect-heavy movie. There was a lot of stuff to get done, so if you're rushing it, that's a shame.
Yeah. But that being said, they were happy with it. So
yeah.
With a lot of these films that you and John did together, it's weird because obviously people of our age have grown up with the film, so they've always been part of our cinematic vocabulary, so to speak. But it just always amazes me how every year I feel like John's popularity continues to grow, or these films continue to find new homes. Or I'm a big music guy, so I love his soundtracks. I love his solo album. I mean, I don't know. How does that feel from both of your perspectives that these films you worked on years ago continue to kind of find new life? I mean, is it just like, oh, that's cool? Or is it really rewarding to know that the quality of the work is what stands out?
Yeah, because it's pretty eternal.
I think that's what you brought up earlier, which is, you guys didn't just, everybody did the best work they possibly could to make the best movie. And years later, I think that sort of thing shows. Whereas maybe films from today, that won't be the case in 20 years from now, I mean,
I don't think you can. I think that, well, what we always say to each other is we just hope we made the best film we could. And the rest of it can't matter. It can't matter if you're in that year. It can't matter what the reaction is. I mean, you always hope people like what you did. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's always a lot happier if everybody goes, "Whoa, was that great?" They rarely do. John's movies are generally really popular later. They're always saying, what happened to the genius that made the last film I hated? They literally rewrite reviews on his movies.
Yeah.
But see, I came from a crew perspective where it really, what the movie was didn't matter as much as the job I did. Mm-hmm. So I've always felt like, look, if we busted our asses and this is what we did, take pride in what we did and move on. It's like basketball players when you go, how do they go back out there after they really missed a bunch in a row? Well, you've got to just do your best the next time out and do your best the next day out. So I think that it's gratifying that people now go, wow, Mouth of Madness. People looked at us like we were insane when we did Mouth of Madness. It's fascinating now. We watch different movies come around, or like the fact that things were big in Europe that weren't big here. Mm-hmm. And you could and there's different fans that are total Mouth of Madness, Apocalypse trilogy types, and those are the things where I sit back and laugh. And I just kind of go, wow, that's interesting.
Well, and then there's, the thing, even, we all know the story and thing, but it's the reverse on that's so huge. I mean, it's like literally,
it's unbelievable.
It's basically now regarded for the most part in the top 2 or 3 horror films of all time. And then you go, that is so mind blowing that it came out at a time where, it makes sense with the E.T. thing. The E.T. part makes sense because of that coming out so close, but it's still, how could you not have seen it was at least a good movie, if not a great movie? It's really hard to believe that those same critics would.
They called him a pornographer of violence, David Anson.
Oh, yeah, it's about the word, that review, and my other favorite review for anyone ever got was Ebert on Blue Velvet. It's just unbelievably savage, and then you hear him talk about it and you realize it's because it fucked him up. It's not because he didn't hate, he thinks he hated it, and it's a bad movie. It's actually because it got to him. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of an interesting thing about criticism.
You can't, but see, by the same token, when they say you've done something great, you can only take that so far.
Yeah.
Because if you buy into that so far, then you're going to buy into the other and you're just going to curl up into a ball and die. You just have to keep creating. Because what we do is we're storytellers. Mm-hmm. And you can either go with the story and dig it, or walk away. Like I said, we're not neurosurgeons, and we didn't kill your child.
Yeah.
You don't like the story we told? That's cool.
You produced Body Bags, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a TV deal at the time.
Yes.
Was the idea for that series to keep going? I can't remember if that was.
No.
Oh, okay. It was.
They wanted it to, but they wanted us to go to Canada, do it for less money, and it's like, oh, come on. It was able to be cool because we could bring in anybody we wanted for 20 minutes or for half a day. And so you could get fun people coming in and out. You can't do that once you go to Canada and you've got to put them on a plane, and, it wouldn't be the same.
Because Scream Factory has been a great relationship, it seems, for you guys and his films. But I specifically Body Bags, which when I was a kid, I remember not getting it. I remember watching it going, I don't know, I didn't really didn't speak to me. And then watching it again, the Stacy Keach performance is one of my favorite things, like favorite dark comedies of all time now.
The gas station
It's just
one for
funny,
me was awesome.
The gas station is good and scary.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's like a revelation almost compared to when it was on VHS. It might be the format, it might just be being older, but
yeah, no, that was one of the ones that I didn't see when it came out. I saw it for the first time when the Blu-ray came out, and I knew nothing about it. So all of it was a surprise, seeing all the cameos, seeing Wes Craven and Sam Raimi, all these guys, and it was a lot of fun. And you're like, man, it's like this little gem that I didn't know about.
Yeah, and see, so that's why we didn't go on and do more, was because you really couldn't do it. If we went up to Toronto or something, it's like you can't get Sam Raimi to fall out of a locker if it's going to be a 3-day gig.
Yeah.
And that was part of the fun. There were little things hidden in it, and Rogers in it.
Yeah. But between that and Big Trouble, you realize I guess I forget how funny. He had a really great sense of tone for comedy in some of those films, and the timing in Big Trouble was talk about films ahead of its time. That's maybe the most I knew as a kid that was like this genius thing, but it wasn't until it felt like almost 15, 20 years later where people started making movies with those kind of mixtures,
Yeah. Well, that was a film that got caught between regime changes at Fox, and it started under Larry Gordon, and Barry Diller came in. And, when you have somebody come in who says, I don't want to see one fucking chink on that poster, you're like,
oh my God.
Good. That's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
You're an enlightened soul, aren't you? Give you another award. But, you've got a film with 300 Chinese from all around the world and the greatest martial artists and grand champions and all of this stuff and grandmasters. That needed to be presented a certain way. And it was one of the greatest fairy tale comedies of all time. I find most people who say, if you say, what are your 2 favorite Carpenter films? If they really like John overall as a director, it's The Thing for horror and Big Trouble for comedy.
Yeah, that'd definitely be me. Even though I love so many of the other, because they're just so unique and they're both so kind of perfect for what they do.
At the Prince of Darkness, we were sitting next to.
I didn't know it, but and he was making it rain. Like he stood up, and I was. I was like, who's this well-dressed guy next to me with his feet up? And then it was like, it was pretty cool. Yeah,
that was very cool. In terms of you guys are working on a lot of stuff. Kind of got your a lot of pokers in the fire, so to speak. But what is the sort of stuff that you're most excited about? Because there's the comic world, there's John's doing the music stuff, there's always the film stuff. I don't know how difficult TV has been to kind of break into, but is it just a little bit of all of it that you guys are excited to keep being creative in all these mediums? Or
because like I said, we're storytellers, so all the different formats are fun, and really it's a matter of so much of it is beyond our control in terms of which thing lands first. I mean, we've got, like I said, right now there's 4 series waiting to go to network. As far as I'm concerned, we'll do all of them. I don't care. I mean, they're great, and they're different from anything that's out there, and they again push the boundaries of what's horror.
How involved would John be in I mean, different.
Is this like a writing, or is he directing these as well?
He would be directing the pilots, and we'd be executive producing them. And one of them we wrote. Actually, we wrote the whole concept and the pitch, and then we brought in another writer to keep going, because at a certain point, we can't keep up.
Do these all fall into the horror realm, or are they a variety of stuff?
There's sci-fi, there's horror, there's one that's kind of, I guess would be sci-fi horror, futuristic kind of thing. They're all across the board. And I mean, I think they'll fulfill what people expect out of him by also being unpredictable.
Nice.
What about the gaming world? Because obviously, Larry Fessenden just recently wrote a game, and I know that's a big part of John's life. Do you play as well, or
I suck?
You say
I 100% suck.
Do you listen to? Does he describe? Does he recap what he does in the game world to you? Do you have to listen to this stuff or not?
I picture you walking through the room as he's playing, and I kind of want to know what's going on.
I'm usually writing on the comic while he's playing this. I see all of them.
Yeah,
but I don't play them. Actually, the one future life for Asylum might be as a game. And then there's a company that's approached us about a virtual reality game.
Yeah, the next big thing.
I wrote the scenario for, the opening scenario for. And I kind of think that could be cool. I know everyone's talking virtual reality for movies, but I think that's really difficult because part of movies is a point of view. And if you give up the point of view, I think you give up part of the pacing and the unfolding of a story. So I'm not, and watch, I'm going to be the fuddy-duddy that has no, future vision, and it'll all become virtual reality. But I think in gaming, it works better, and particularly in a horror game, I think it could be a lot of fun that you could really fuck people up.
Well, like in first-person movies are just kind of awful. I mean, at this stage, they haven't really, besides Diving Bell and the Butterfly or something, but you watch things like Doom, and it's just like, I don't want to watch a guy's hands, in the frame.
But a couple of months ago, I got to try out the Oculus head system, which is like the new virtual reality, which I don't think there's like a consumer model yet, but they wheel it out at most of the industry shows, so you can try it out. And I mean, the one that I was using that I demoed on, it was just an underwater scene. Mm-hmm. And you can look all around. You're standing at the bottom of the ocean. You can look all around at the fish. And then you look up and this giant fucking whale comes overhead. And it was startling and amazing and beautiful and something I'd never experienced before. And I'm still and it was just trippy and it was like a whole new sensation. So.
Yeah. And I think particularly for gaming, it could really work. And so that's something we've got something going in. So we'll see. But yeah, that's the way I see getting involved in gaming more is to push it.
Is it worth it at this point? I mean, as a producer in the last, let's say, decade, is it the film world has changed so much, and I'm sure there's some of the projects that you and John would like to do. The type of money that they're probably offering, well, we'll do it for this much, which is way lower than you're used to. Is it even, I guess my question is it even worth it to struggle to make a movie these days when you have opportunities like comics and games and things like that, where you and TV, where you can be even more creative than, you know what I mean? Like,
it's not worth making a movie if it's not going to be optimum. The whole thing, again, is about serving the project more than how much money can we make off it. Can the movie be made for that amount of money? And they're so used to saying to us, well, you can do anything for this amount of money. No, actually we can't. You can't serve the audience when they've seen all these movies made for $250 million and you try and serve them a piece of shit for $10 million just because it fits your model, because you don't want to distribute it well and you don't want to put $50 million into the release because, buddy, you're going to have to do that in order to compete, because you can't put a little sign on the bottom that says, yeah, but we only had this much money.
Yeah.
That doesn't count. All the advances got made in our genre. So if you're going to do fantasy and you're going to do things in outer space and you're going to do all this other stuff, face it, it's going to cost you money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't want to spend it, it's fine. I don't need to make your movie. Like you said, there's other things we can do because we like being creative no matter what it is. It's really not going to kill us not to make a movie the wrong way.
Yeah. Do you stay up to date with new genre stuff, or is it do you just wait to hear from other people what's meant to be great that's coming out, or does John have any interest in what young filmmakers are making out there? Or?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
I think the more interesting stuff's coming out of Scandinavia.
Uh-huh.
Because they tell more interesting stories. They're not just using a gimmick in order to splatter guts. It got really boring during the splatter films.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, splatter porn. I don't care.
Well, The Killing was also originally from there, the show.
Yeah.
Did you see saying like, well, Let the Right One In?
Yep, and that was great.
Sure, yeah. It's an amazing film.
Yeah, fantastic. But a lot of the other stuff is just, come on, you're boring me. You're either doing what's been done and not as well, or you're only doing it for the sake of a couple of scenes. You haven't told a story that moves me, so I don't care about your characters.
From memory, I thought, did John like It Follows?
Yeah, It Follows was pretty good.
It's just funny because, obviously it was being compared stylistically a lot to the original Halloween.
Yeah.
So, but hey, rip off from the best. Well, if you're gonna do it,
and don't get caught.
Thank you. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, what's the next thing on the agenda? What's obviously the Tales of Halloween Night has come out officially.
Yep.
So you can buy that one. But what's up next for you guys?
The second Tales of Halloween Night is already being written.
Okay.
Everybody's already on that. Asylum is still coming out every other month, so they can get that. And the trade for that, for the people that only buy the trades, will be out it's either April or May. I can't decide. We've been fighting about the date based on when they can get it in stores. Try May.
Okay. And do we have to go to Iceland to see John play, or Norway, or is there any other chance we'll ever see one of these concerts? Would you tour?
I have a feeling there may be other chances, but I have a feeling I'll also be killed if I say anything.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But we should. So you're saying we should go to Iceland just in case?
Just in case. We're going to go see him in Iceland.
Our show's probably big in Iceland, I'm guessing.
We're huge.
One of those Scandinavian countries. Has that been something that's been really kind of fun for you to watch him kind of get that recognition, and also kind of like coming out with new music? To me, that's must be kind of revitalizing. But
well, what's the great thing has been watching him playing with our sons.
Oh, cool.
And because they're the other two musicians on the albums.
Oh, cool.
And it's our godson and our son who play with him. And so that's been really cool. And they're having so much fun that, they grew up playing all the instruments in the house all the time. And they both played on soundtracks since Vampires. So, and Cody played on, and I think scored one of the Masters of Horror.
Right.
So, Daniel's now been scoring movies. So, this has been a really fun time. That they're back in the house playing music all the time. So that's really cool, and they will all be in Iceland.
Awesome.
And the odds are, I think that they've got their passports renewed for other places.
Nice.
Cool. Just in case.
Just in case.
We're still going to Iceland.
Yeah.
That's the final
We'll
say.
see you at the Iceland show.
I'm not taking any risk.
Well, Sandy, we really, really want to thank you for your time and coming out to talk to us. It was something that we wanted to do all year, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
We look forward to everything that you and John have coming in the future.
Pick up the comic, pick up the CD.
Oh, and thank him for my favorite, my favorite jump cut memory of all. There was a little place called Jump Cut Cafe.
Yes,
that was my place. I was the owner, and he came, and I never thought in a million years he would come to a place like that. And he was also in such a good mood.
For the screening.
He was in such a great mood for the Q&A.
It was the fog.
It was Heather Wixon put it on, and he just seemed to. Well, to me, it was nice because he seemed to. I would get nervous that people would come into such a small place and walk out going, "What is this piece of shit?" But both he and Larry Cohen said such nice things after they left. The
even
energy.
Jeff was there as well.
But John seemed like he had at least fun. But I would actually like you genuinely to thank him for me because we said sad to close, but it was my highlight.
I was sad to see that.
Yeah,
we both thought it was a cool place.
3 years isn't bad in that world.
Yeah,
it's a
good ride
for a restaurant.
It's actually really good.
Yeah, well, thank him for me. I appreciate it.
I absolutely will.
And thank you, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.